I'm Aki Hoshide of the STS-124 crew. You're watching NASA TV.
Good morning, Discovery, and a special good morning to you today, Aki.
Good morning, Shannon, and good morning, Houston. Thanks for the songs, and thanks for everyone who's supporting this mission. With your help, we're taking off to the future with hopes and dreams. Thanks a lot.
And you're very welcome.
This is Mission Control Houston at a mission elapsed time of 6 days, 13 hours, 56 minutes into the flight of Discovery to the International Space Station. The 10 crew members in the early stages of Flight Day 8 of this mission as they continue joint operations on board the two vehicles. Today's emphasis of activity will be preparations for tomorrow's third and final spacewalk of the mission by Mike Fossum and Ron Garan, and the initial testing and exercising of the components of the Japanese robotic arm at the front end of the newly outfitted Kibo module. A look at the forward end of the Kibo laboratory of the International Space Station, and two of the booms on the 33-foot-long Japanese robotic arm. That robotic arm will be partially deployed, and by that we mean a very almost an imperceptible deployment of one of the booms to provide the access clearance required for Mike Fossum and Ron Garan during their spacewalk tomorrow to be able to remove some insulation, some thermal insulation from the elbow and wrist camera areas of that arm, as well as to retrieve launch locks and to also release a series of bolts or launch locks from the aft window of the forward end of Kibo. This is a close-up view of the hold and release mechanism for the robotic arm at the forward end of the Kibo module. The black pin that you see is going to move ever so slightly, the first sign of successful commanding to this hold and release mechanism that essentially will free up the joints on the 33-foot-long robotic arm. This is Mission Control. You can see very clearly that the black pin, which is the hold and release mechanism, has fully retracted. It took 7 minutes 59 seconds to do that retraction under the commanding of Aki Hoshide with the assistance of Karen Nyberg from the robotic workstation inside the Kibo laboratory. The end effector pitch down was completed, about 2 centimeters. Everything looking good so far in the initial movement of the first component of one of the joints of the Japanese robotic arm. Considerable motion now on the commanding of Aki Hoshide as the Japanese robotic arm comes to life at the forward end of the Kibo module. Japanese flight controllers in scuba reporting good results so far, quite happy with the electrical path, the temperatures on the arm, all of its functioning. So far so good in the initial deployment of the 33-foot-long arm.
Discovery Alpha aboard Kibo. This is CNN New York. How do you read me?
Got you loud and clear, Miles. How do you hear us?
5 by 5, guys. You look great. Commander Mark Kelly, I want to begin with you. Give us a sense of the scale of Kibo. All the shots we've seen, especially without all the equipment racks in there, it looks like a huge space.
It is, Miles. When we first installed it the other day and opened up the hatch, if you were watching the video, you saw all of us kind of tumbling a little bit out of control because in most places you can't reach something. Since then, we've installed a bunch of racks and closeouts, and it's the space is a little bit more manageable, but it's certainly the biggest module on the space station. Yeah,
what we noticed was Garrett Reisman doing some swimming, I guess it was. Could you pass the microphone over to Garrett? I'm just curious about, just what strokes were those anyway?
I think it was a desperate attempt at a backstroke. I'm not really sure. I can tell you the swimming in air really doesn't work very well. And that was, it was a concern coming in because Aki and I were both scheduled for a lot of time in here. We're both a little vertically challenged. And so there was a concern that you could get stuck out in the middle of this module. It's so big and not be able to touch anything. And Ken Ham over here decided to test that theory. And we found out that, eventually you get sucked into a vent.
Yeah, I guess you need one of those pendants. I'm floating and I can't get up or whatever, or something like that. Hey, Mike Fossum, I wanted to ask you, before you left, you were talking about, taking a few moments of the taxpayer time while you were doing your spacewalk to kind of stop and smell the roses. Did you take the time, and what do you owe us? No, seriously, what exactly did you see? What were your impressions out there as you're doing your work in space?
In space is an awesome experience. It's very much unlike anything else you'll experience anywhere. The personal moment I took was a couple of days ago when we were working on a camera hanging out on the port side of the station, and it's on a stick on a stanchion that hangs down below the station, so you're really hanging out there. And we had a sunrise come up, and for just a moment, watched the sky turn to a blaze of color along the horizon, and then the white sun just push up through there and just hit you square in the face and say, the sunrise takes place in just a few seconds, and it was pretty neat.
Hey, while I have you, Mike, I noticed when you were out there, you noticed a potential problem, and I underscore the word potential, with the other side of the station, the other so-called SARG, which is that huge paddle wheel device designed to keep those solar arrays tracking with the sun. Does it look like the problems you see on the right side or starboard side? And if so, what are the potential implications?
No, I don't believe it looks at all like the starboard side. The starboard side definitely has metal shavings that show up, and you can see some damage to the metal surface. There's just some things look different on the side that we looked at the other day, the port side. It really looks to me like a little bit of grease, which is not a terrible big surprise when you're dealing with a bearing surface, but it was not expected. Through the photographs, I think there might be a little bit of dusting of some other deposits around there. And so right now, and this plan is changing by the hour, tomorrow we plan to go out with a little bit of special tape and collect some of that dust from around the edge of the bearing. But really, if that bearing looks to be in pretty darn good shape.
Let's send it over to Aki Hoshida, the Japanese astronaut on board. This is a milestone moment for the Japanese space program. Put it into some perspective, having seen Kibo attached. There you are in it. It's a beautiful facility. What does this mean for Japan?
First of all, Miles, the Kibo Lab is meant for science like life science or material science. And outside, we don't have it yet, but we'll have a port next year, and we'll have some equipment outside for some science experiment as well. And it's a big milestone. We have our own house here now, and it's bigger now, so people can start doing some science here.
All right, send it back to Mark Kelly. Mark, in a few days, we're going to go visit a certain congresswoman from Arizona, and you know, you're a newlywed, and I know this was a nervous time for her, and I don't know, you know, you're a steely-eyed rocket man, so I'm sure you weren't nervous, but I'm curious if you've had much of a chance to talk back and forth with her, and can you give us the gist, at least, of your conversations with her during this mission?
We have a kind of an internet telephone here on station. I made a couple phone calls, and Gabrielle sends me email several times a day, despite her very busy schedule in Congress. She was a little nervous. I think maybe a little more so than my last flight. We've been married about coming up on 7 months now. And you know, there's a certain amount of risk involved in a shuttle flight, and she recognizes that. But you know, Discovery and is in great shape now. Was in great shape on the launch pad, and so far this has been a very safe and successful mission, and we plan for it to continue that way.
Well, you know about long-distance relationships like few couples, I should say. Mark Kelly and the rest of the combined crews of the International Space Station and Discovery, thanks very much for your time. They continue their mission. We're at the midway point as we speak, hurtling over Australia, 17,500 miles an hour. The mission continues, and so does our coverage. Back to you.
Miles.
Discovery Station, this is WCBS TV. How do you hear me?
You loud and clear, CBS. Who are we speaking to?
This is Armenia.
Armenia, you can go ahead with your questions. We can all hear you.
Great. So, guys, tell me a little bit how your mission is going.
The mission's going great. We did our first two spacewalks on day 4 and day 6 of the mission. They were very successful. We installed the Japanese laboratory on day 4. We're in it right now. We've installed some systems racks into it, and you can see it's getting close to be a fully functional facility.
How are the preps going so far for the third walk?
The preparations for the third walk are going great. We've got the suits checked out and just about ready to go. All of our tools packed up, and a few final procedure reviews, and we'll be ready to go out the door tomorrow.
This next question is for Karen and Aki. Tell me, guys, how's your first space flight going? What are your impressions?
As for me, I'm having a wonderful time. It has met and exceeded expectations. It's really actually hard to describe. I feel pretty natural here in the weightless environment. I like it a lot. I kind of wish we could live like this all the time.
Yeah, exactly the same here. You know, microgravity is really awesome. It's really fun to play around in here. We're still getting used to how to maneuver ourselves, but it's really awesome. And during our docking, when we first saw the International Space Station, it was so beautiful.
Now, I understand we have some locals on board there. Ron from Yonkers, Mark, Ken, and Garrett from New Jersey. Anything you guys want to say to people back at home here in New York, tri-state area?
Yeah, looking at the timer on my knee right now, we have 32 minutes before we go right up the New Jersey East Coast and right by New York City. So I know it'll be daylight out there, and it'll be pretty much impossible to see us, but we'll be waving at you.
Is there anything you guys brought special on board from home? Any mementos?
Well, we just brought things that mean a lot to us from home, just certain pieces of jewelry. I have twins that are graduating from high school next year. We brought their high school rings up with us, and just personal things like that, just to make it special for the whole family, because the whole family is part of this.
And, you know, Ron is a Mets fan, actually, so he wasn't going to bring this up, but we actually have some dirt from the field at Yankee Stadium.
Ron, what is a Mets fan doing with dirt from Yankee Stadium? I don't know.
Next to him is a big Yankees fan.
There you go. So I see that you guys are obviously big sports fan. Belmont Stakes are today, possible Triple Crown winner, first time in 30 years. Any thoughts on that? Any interest in the horse race?
Interested in it. I got an email from it or about it, but I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Yeah, I got an email from my sister Gretchen today, who is a horse veterinarian and obviously been around horses for many, many years, and she was excited asking whether we were going to be able to watch the race. Of course we can't, but would appreciate the news when it happens.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. Make sure you wave to us here down in the New York tri-state area, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. We'll wave as we go by at 17,500 miles an hour. It won't take long.
Discovery Station, this is Kevin at WDAY-TV in Fargo, North Dakota. How do you hear me?
Got you loud and clear from the International Space Station. How do you hear us?
I hear you well. Great to see you guys. Well, Karen, 1 week ago, in fact, it was about a week ago right now, we watched you at Kennedy on the walkout, waving before the launch. It's been a week. Any way to put into words what this week's been like?
Hey, Kevin, it's nice talking to you. The week has gone way too fast. That's probably the best way to put it into words. It's really hard to describe the whole experience, and people have said that before, and now that I've experienced it, I understand. The ride-up was incredible, actually not as rough as I thought it was going to be. Getting onto orbit was busy. Every day since has been busy. Floating around in microgravity is incredible. It's an incredible amount of fun.
You know, when we were down with you and the crew in Houston, you mentioned you might almost have to force yourself to take time to enjoy it up there and to take in the view. Just watching you all of you the last 24 hours, you've been so busy with the mission. Have you had the time, Karen, to take a peek and see what's out there?
Every so often I had the chance. Yesterday and the day before we were doing a lot of work here in the space station, and there aren't a lot of windows to look out. So at the end of the day, I realized that I don't think I had looked out the window once. So I did take a moment and went up to the Space Shuttle flight deck in the commander's seat and just kind of stared out at the new Japanese module and just kind of look at the work we'd done. And what happens here when we work the robotic arm from the station side, all of our views are camera views, and it almost feels like we're just in a simulation again and not really doing anything real. So going up to the flight deck and looking out the window made it real so we could actually see the fruits of our labor.
Now, before launch, you had so many family and friends down there. Classmates even brought their young kids. Is that neat, the influence that you and the crew are having on another generation?
Hopefully young folks are watching what we're doing and getting inspired to study what they need to study to accomplish great things in life.
What did you bring along with you up there?
I have a few different things, some things from the University of North Dakota where I got my undergraduate degree. I do have a UND flag that hopefully I'll be bringing out and get a couple pictures of. A couple personal mementos, pictures of my dogs and things like that.
Well, great seeing you all. Karen, bring the crew when you are down, bring them out to the lake and teach them how to do a little walleye fishing.
Yeah, I mentioned that. We might have to try and do that.
Great seeing you.
Karen Nyberg, a mission specialist. She is working on the remote manipulator system. That's one of the arms that will be used tomorrow during the spacewalk.
Station Kibo, this is Mamoru's new icon in Tokyo. How do you read me?
Mamoru-san, we have you loud and clear. Can you hear us?
I can hear and see you loud and clear.
Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate you on your successful installation of the keyboard.
はい、ありがとうございます。
As your first flight out in space, what is your impression?
そうですね、初めての宇宙ですけれども、本当に
Well, yes, it is my first flight, but I'm blessed with good
クルーもそうですし、
teammates,
ヒューストンにいる地上の管制
Commander
官、それ
Kelly
から
and
筑波にいます
other crew members, and also the people on ground, and the people at Tsukuba Space Center, and they're all assisting us, and things are proceeding as planned. Commander Kelly, well, thank you very much for assisting Japan in assembling this new lab.
Oh, you're welcome, Mr. Prime Minister. It's great to be part of the mission.
こちらこそありがとうございます。参加できて私も嬉しいです。Commander Kelly, you've lived in Japan, have you not? You know a lot about Japan, do you not? And therefore, I think this work went smoothly because you are so familiar with Japan.
Yes, sir. I lived just south of Tokyo, about an hour south in Atsugi, Japan, at the Naval Air Facility there from 1989 to 1991. So it makes it a little bit extra special for me to be part of this mission, since I have, really close association with Japan and the people of Japan. So I was really excited to be assigned to this flight.
Mr. Hoshide, I'd like to ask Minister Tokai. This is Tokai here. This is Tokai here. I'm sorry. Thank you for your work. Thank you. Yes, Kibo. Well, there are new ideas, especially, the noise level I heard was very low. Can you introduce us to the various things that you have there?
そうですね、ちょっとカメラが固定されているので、残念ながら
well, the camera is fixed, so it's difficult for you to show you everything on board here, but still, the sound is very quiet. The space station on the whole has been said to be quite noisy, but once I came inside here, it wasn't as noisy as I had expected. But compared to that, I think the Kibo, the PM pressurized model, the sound of the fan, the sound of the pumps are very low, so it's quite quiet. Are there any other characteristics to start?
そうですね。今ご覧いただきますと、こういう四角い空間になっていますけれども、
as you can see here, it's a square-shaped space, and once we were launched into space, and once it was installed onto the International Space Station, it was almost empty. We spent about 2 days, and all the crew members have tried to transfer the experimental devices into this lab. As you can see in the back, this is an airlock. And next year, once we have the external platform, will be an outside experiment device, so we will exchanging through this airlock. And another characteristic is this window here. The space station only has a few windows, but in the first EVA, the lid of this window, we removed the bolt that was fixed onto the window at the time it was launched, and we opened the window. And the Earth that we see from here is beautiful. The crew members took turns peeping into the window. But unfortunately, we haven't flown over Japan yet, and so I'm looking forward to seeing Japan from outer space. Thank you.
We also have Ambassador Schiefer, so Ambassador, please.
Hoshide-san, it's great to see you there, and it's great to see those two flags flying together in the space shuttle.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador.
But I want to ask you one question, because there's such a close relationship between the United States and Japan. But I'm wondering if there's any trouble between the Longhorns and Aggies on board.
Well, Mr. Ambassador, on my last mission, I flew with a Longhorn and an Aggie at the same time, and it's kind of a similar situation with, you know, Mike Fossum and Karen Nyberg, each from the different schools. So we have a lot of fun with it.
That's good.
Thank you very much. And today here, we have some of the young students who attend the same school as Mr. Hoshide. So Minami Ashikaga from the Futako Tamagawa Primary School. I know that Minami has a question, please. Yes, I have a question. In space, what is the most difficult task? What is the most difficult thing you experienced? Hello. And in space, the most difficult thing I was exposed to was this. When I came to space, I wasn't used to zero gravity or microgravity, so stabilizing my body myself was very difficult. Now I'm accustomed to that, and I could relatively move freely, float myself, or stabilize my body. But a veteran like our commander, as you can see, our Commander Kelly, he could move freely at will, stabilize himself or not. And I am not at his level yet. Thank you very much. Next. And one of the students from the junior high school that Mr. Hoshida attended, Ms. Nagai.
Anything that you learned in school that actually helped you in controlling the robot arm?
Hi, shall I answer this in English or in Japanese?
Yeah, please.
どちらで答えましょうか。英語でお願いします。
日本語でお答えしたいと思いますけれども、そうですね。
Well, I would like to respond to that in Japanese. What I learned in school, rather than the actual academic work that I learned, it's more about how to get along with your peers, your friends, and teamwork is very important in this work. And in orbit, among the crew, the astronauts, there are 7 astronauts at the shuttle and 3 astronauts at the ISS, and we are collaborating together in working on this mission. And there's also the controllers on ground, so we need to have a very good coordinated teamwork. So the extracurricular activities I was involved in, for example, rugby or the swimming club that I was in, and also the life in dormitories, that teamwork actually is helping me a lot. Thank you very much. And Ms. Nagai is a returnee from overseas, like yourself, Mr. Hoshide. And Mark, Commander, if you could answer in English, I'm sure she'll understand.
Well, I think, the space shuttle is a complex vehicle. And, anything you can learn about math and science is always going to be beneficial in any career in aerospace. We use math and science and physics, different kinds of science. There's chemistry on board the laboratory. There will be here in the GEM, material science. All those things you learn in a technical education is really important for what astronauts do on the space station.
活動する上では科学算数が重要になると思います。Thank you very much. We would like to ask Kosei Ikeda from the Futako Tamagawa Primary School.
Being in Discovery, don't you suffer from lack of exercise?
はい、ディスカバリーにいて運動不足にならないかという質問ですけれども。
Yes, don't I suffer from lack of exercise being in Discovery? Well, right now the Discovery is docked to the ISS, so we have this large space in which we can move around. But as you know, well, we don't move our legs very much. We're floating around and moving, so we don't use our muscles. And therefore, well, within our schedule, we every day, although the time is limited, try to get some exercise. Well, when we're busy, it's difficult to find the time, but for example, we ride bicycles, and so that's the type of exercise that we're doing. Thank you. Next, from Meike Junior High, Hirotaka Oyama. Well, I am a member of the rugby club. Mr. Hoshide, I think you've taken a rugby ball with you.
はい、宇宙でラグビーボール、スピンパスですね。僕と同じスクラムハーフだと聞いてますけれども、そうですか？
はい。
はい、そうですね。宇宙でラグビーボールをスピンパスで投げるとどうなると思います？
回転の速度は遅くなると思うんですが。
はい、実はまだ試してないので、
I haven't experimented to tell you the truth yet. I'll try it out. But we have to be extra careful because we don't want to break any of the experimental devices here. So I think I'll have to throw it slow. Well, I'll tell you what happened later on once we do the experiment. I think it'll be the world's first experiment, so please, please do not break any of the experimental devices, and please report back to Oyama, Mr. Oyama here, the result once you get back to Earth. Next, Ms. Sayaka Kamiyama. Yes? I am a member of the swimming club, just like Mr. Hoshide. Now, I hear that you did training in water. But being out in space in the microweight environment, how does it differ from experimenting, training in water?
はい、水中での訓練はですね、実は船外活動。
Well, the training in water, well, it was for EVA, and this time I haven't done any EVA. I am not going to spacewalk during this mission. But having said that, even inside, you have to float around, control your body, and this is just like being in a swimming pool. But the only thing that's really different is that your blood seems to circulate towards your head. So your body fluid, well, normally on Earth, it because of gravity is concentrated towards your feet. But in this case, the fluid tends to rush to your head, so you feel that. But other than that, it's exactly the same as being in water. Thank you. Well, Mr. Hoshide, you're a rugby player, swimmer, so you seem to be very good at sports. But in order to become an astronaut, is it better to exercise, do sports?
そうですね。実は私そんなに運動神経がいい方でもないんですけれども。
Well, I'm not that good at sports, to be honest, but junior high did swimming, and also at senior high, and in university I did rugby. I liked it. I did train my body. Well, the fact that I'm healthy, of course, is a must to become an astronaut. So training yourself like that is very important, I think. Yes, we still have some time. Anyone else have any questions? Just raise your hand. Yes? Mr. Oyama? In order to realize one's dream, what's most important?
はい、そうですね。夢を実現するために一番大事なことっていうのは。
Well, in order to realize your dream, I think what's most important is never to give up. In my case, I tried 3 times. I did the experiment 3 times to pass the test to become an astronaut. Well, amongst the NASA astronauts, there are some who succeeded after 5 times. So that's how much they wanted to become an astronaut. They didn't give up, though they failed. And I think that's one of the things that they look at NASA. I want all of you to keep on trying, never give up, in order to realize your dream.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? And Mr. Get Up? How does it feel wearing the gear, the spacesuits?
はい、宇宙服の着心地ですね。
Well, the suit and how comfortable it is. Well, in the launch, you saw us in our orange pressurized gear. And it's not that bad or uncomfortable. It's a bit cumbersome and hard to move in. However, it's not that heavy. But the heat remains inside, so it really heats up. And in order to cool the body, the water is circulated in the suit, and without that, it gets very hot inside. Thank you very much. Well, we are already running out of time, but Prime Minister and Minister, if you have a message, please. Mr. Hoshide. We are today communicating to you here on the Tokyo-based Odaiba, the Miraikan, the National Museum of Emerging Science and Innovation, where Dr. Mori, the astronaut Dr. Mori, is the director. And we have this geocosmos with a radius of 6 meters. It's a very large display. And we saw this change of climate change and the Earth's situation. 50 years, 100 years from now on, we know or we anticipate that the Earth might change dramatically. So it's very concerning for all of us. But the fruits of the experiments and research that is conducted on the ISS and Kibo, let's hope that that will bring about a better environment for the Earth. So we are looking forward to the successful conclusion of the experiments that will be conducted on Kibo, and we would like to thank you for your contribution, and I look forward to seeing you again in Japan. And Minister Tokai? Yes. Thank you, Prime Minister. And we see a very vivid picture of you as though you are very close to us, and the high definition technology that Japan prides in. I am very interested in this, and a real-time, sincere message could be conveyed via this technology. So please communicate to the children of the world the greatness of our planet Earth. And I look forward to seeing you in person when you return to Japan. Good luck. And Mr. Hoshide. Thank you, Minister. We are currently soliciting new applicants for the JAXA astronauts in Japan, so if you could send a message to them, please. Thank you. Well, space is a wonderful place, more than what I had expected. It's very comfortable. It's fun. There's a lot of experience you can do that will not be possible if you were on Earth. And the Earth you see from this window is very precious but very vulnerable presence. And so I hope that many of you will get to visit space. Thank you very much. We look forward to your great contribution to the space program. And the kids here today would like to thank you today. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you back in Japan. Thank you very much.
Houston, this concludes the event.